A new Stanford study says mindfulness training can help children sleep longer and better. The study involved more than 1,000 third and fifth grade students in two of the Bay Area's low-income communities. One group of children took part in mindfulness exercises twice a week for 2 years in their PE classes. The children were taught breathing techniques, yoga-based movement, and ways to cope with stress. Children in the group that received the mindfulness training slept on average more than an hour a night more than the control group. So join us now, Christina Chick, one of the researchers involved in this study. She is a postdoctorate research fellow at Stanford University. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Claudine. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here on Mornings On 2. So these results pretty significant. I mean, obviously we know children need sleep, and this was a significant amount of more sleep.
That's right. You know, sleep is so essential for children's physical and mental health. The body might go to rest, but the brain really goes to work during sleep, consolidating the memories that kids learned at school during the day, and also preparing them to better regulate their emotions and deal with stress the following day. So to the extent that we can support them in falling asleep and staying asleep, that's really
it's so important.
It's a great finding.
we can all use that as well, I think.
Yeah.
So talk about how this study worked, you know, over the 2 years in the Bay Area. And you had some first in terms of how you were studying that brain technique and brain activity as it relates to sleep and mindfulness.
That's right. So members of our team actually went to children's homes and set up what we call polysomnography equipment. So that's a whole suite of physiological measurement equipment, including an electroencephalography cap on their scalp. So we could record the brain waves that were happening during their sleep, as well as other physiological measures like their breathing and heart rate. The children who received this training in mindfulness, yoga-based movement, and breathing techniques, which served to help calm their nervous system, as you pointed out, slept an average of an hour longer per night over the course of those 2 years.
I'm wondering why you picked the children of that age group as opposed to maybe high school kids who could really also tell you, like, I felt better in the morning, and really are kind of, I think, tuned into the stress and anxiety of being a little bit older and going through a lot of different changes in their lives.
Well, that's absolutely right. And certainly we know that as children develop and become adolescents, there are a bunch of physiological, biological, and social stressors that serve to reduce their sleep. But I think it's important to teach kids so that these habits become, these strategies become habitual, so that by the time they reach adolescence and are engaged with a lot more stressors, they're able to engage these techniques because they're just doing them anyway as habits.
Yeah, I guess the idea, right? They're less resistance. If you're saying we're going to do yoga today to a third grader versus we're going to do yoga today to a 15-year-old, it becomes, I think, a little bit of a different process. You know, when you're talking about yoga and mindfulness, I think it's interesting. It sounds like things were pretty simple. I mean, things can get very advanced in if you are, a yogi, right? You're doing all these other types of things. But when it comes to kids, there's a lot of just breathing techniques. Did you find that it was easily put into these schools and into the curriculum?
Absolutely. I mean, we taught the kids these techniques in an age-appropriate way. So, for example, for the elementary schoolers, we taught them starfish breath. So they could trace their finger, as each finger was one limb of a starfish. And during the inhalation, they traced up, and during the exhalation, they traced down. And having that concrete reminder for younger kids is really helpful for them. And as kids advanced into middle school and eventually high school, we taught them some more advanced techniques. For example, we taught them ocean breath, in which they breathe in slowly and deeply through their nose and exhale through their mouth slowly as though they were fogging a mirror. We also taught some of the older kids the science behind how these breathing techniques help regulate their nervous system, which I think is really cool too.
So I think, what's interesting, I wonder what happens next for you. I mean, obviously, if you're talking about communities and you put it into school, then it's equal opportunity for everyone, and it's easier to put it out to the population in an equitable way. These are also techniques, I think, that can be used at home, which is helpful. What do you think is the next step?
Well, absolutely. And you mentioned the kids could use these techniques at home. In fact, the kids who reported having used the techniques more outside of the classroom, for example, at home before bed, actually saw greater gains in their sleep over this time period. In terms of next steps, certainly we would like to examine additional effects of this curriculum and the secondary effects of sleep on things like their academic performance and their school attendance. I would also like to examine exactly how these mindfulness and breathwork techniques are helping kids fall and stay asleep. So we know that breathwork, for example, induces parasympathetic nervous system activity, which helps calm down the body and helps us fall asleep. I would like to get more specific about which of these techniques are most beneficial so that we can really emphasize those moving forward.
Really so important as we talk about the whole child and learning how to get them through experiences and teaching them and being effective that way. I think all very interesting. We have to leave it there. Christina Chick, who is a researcher at Stanford University and a postdoctorate research fellow, thanks for the work and the interest. And certainly as those children learn from the mouth of babes, they'll also teach us adults how we can also sleep better and be more mindful.
It works for us too. It works for us too, that's for sure. Thanks for having me, Claudine.
Thanks so much. Let's go now to meteorologist